Hi everybody. Today I wanted to do a what I had wished I knew / advice for other moms or parents who are in the NICU. I have twin daughters. They were born at 32 weeks and 6 days at night, so I always say 33 weeks, basically exactly 33 weeks. My firstborn daughter was in the NICU for 3 weeks and 4 days, and my secondborn daughter was in the NICU for exactly 5 weeks to the day. So my kids are watching Sesame Street in the background. If you can hear it, just kind of excuse that. And let's get started. So the first thing I wanted to say was to be your own advocate. I feel like for me, I almost felt like my kids weren't mine when I was in the NICU, and it was really difficult for me because I felt like I wasn't allowed to say no. I wasn't allowed to take control of my kids' care basically at all. Like, I think I had a little more say than it felt like I had, but it just really seemed to me like everybody kind of just thought I knew nothing, and I was just like, being a first-time mom, I knew nothing and I didn't know what to do, and like I should just take their way of doing things and just do it blindly basically, which is not true. I have taken care of many kids. I have a lot of experience with kids. I have experience with newborns, and I actually wasn't typical. I mean, I was a first-time mom, but I wasn't the typical first-time mom. I wasn't as nervous and confused, I guess, as a lot of people who would have been a first-time mom my age would have been. Not to say that there aren't other nannies out there, because 100% there are. But obviously not everybody takes care of kids. Not everybody has kids experience at the age of 25. So I feel like I was really looked down upon kind of in a way, and it led to some problems. So don't be afraid to speak up for yourself. If you feel like something isn't being taken care of, or you don't want something to happen, tell them, you know, and make sure that it's very clear that like, that's what you want. These are your wishes. You're the parent, you get to say. So like an example for me was my firstborn daughter was unable to latch, and we were working on latching over and over, and they just kept saying, oh, she's too young. She can't latch because she's too young. Finally, a nurse said to me, you should have speech therapy come in and check her mouth, basically. And so I said, okay. And so I demanded, basically, at rounds to see a speech therapist. And when they came in, they were like, her palate's too high and narrow. That's why she's not latching. She doesn't have a good grasp. They could see that she was trying as hard as she could, and it just wasn't fitting properly. So they gave me a bottle, and the second that I got a bottle, that was it. The next day the tube came out. She was gaining weight. She came home. That was that. And I kind of feel like we wasted a lot of time with not only me not speaking up about something, but also the fact that like nobody said anything to me, and I should have asked. So just definitely don't feel bad about speaking up for yourself and your kids. These are your kids. If you want to be present for a test, tell them you want to be present for a test. Make it clear. Don't feel bad about calling at 3 in the morning if you want to call. Don't feel bad about any of that stuff. I think a lot of people don't, but I know that I did, and so just don't. So the second thing that I wanted to comment on was you don't have to feel bad about being pissed off. I don't know if it's maybe just me, or if a lot of people just didn't want to admit it because they knew the NICU was the best place for their baby being born early, or having some sort of health problem, or whatever reason they were there for. But a lot of the parents seemed to kind of almost not care. Like, or not that they didn't care, but they made it seem like they didn't care. They would say to me, while we were talking about our kids, they would say stuff like, oh, well, you know, as long as it takes as long as it does, because, you know, they're so tiny right now, and they still need to grow, they still need to do this. And all of that stuff is true, don't get me wrong, it is. But I was mad, you know? I had a very healthy pregnancy. Everything was great, and then suddenly out of nowhere, at 32 weeks and 2 days, I find out I have to be induced. It was a shock, you know, and I was pissed. I was like, why am I here? Why do we continue being here? I don't want to be here. This isn't what I want. You know, what I wanted to continue living my life. I liked being pregnant. I didn't want to be sitting in a hospital room 13 hours a day in and day out, weeks at a time. I was mad, and I felt like I was the only one kind of who was mad, because either everybody else is different than me and maybe this advice is stupid, but I just feel like I got the sense that people felt like they weren't allowed to be mad because they knew it was the best place for their baby. And that's true, and that's okay. But it's also okay to kind of not be okay, you know? Like, I was so pissed and I needed to vent about it. And I felt like I was the only person who was kind of saying, like, this is taking forever, and, like, you know, when one daughter came home, I said, you know, like, why is it taking so long? And I said, I know that she needs to stop having A's and B's, but I just wish they would let me take her home. It was very frustrating. I don't know. Number 3 is don't be afraid to ask questions. I feel like a lot of times people are not afraid to ask questions. I think that me being introverted and shy to begin with, I was kind of like, I would ask a question once and then I would feel like, okay, I can't ask that question again. So one thing for me is that I really, really, really wanted to know. I'm kind of a control freak, and I really, really, really wanted to know the protocol for coming home. I wanted to know what milestones my kids have to reach in order to come home, because for me, I need to know that so that I know how far away we are from coming home. And I asked in the beginning what the milestones are, and people just kept saying to me, like, oh, well, they just need to grow right now. They need to grow right now. And okay, they're 33 weekers. Of course they have to grow right now. I understand that. They're not going to come home right now. But I wanted to know, and it took me about 2 weeks to learn that at my NICU, they have to be 4 pounds, no tube, and gaining weight for 48 hours, no apnea or bradycardia spells for 5 days, and obviously be able to keep everything in homeostasis without, like, the incubator kind of stuff, like, obviously. So all of those things together, you know, I was under the impression that they were gonna come home a lot sooner than they did because I wasn't told this, and I had to keep asking this over and over. And I feel like no matter what question you have, just don't be afraid to ask. I feel like you kind of get treated like you're just a family member waiting, and you just don't, like, there were some nurses that were really nice, but some other nurses kind of just made it seem like I don't matter. Like, I shouldn't be asking questions. I shouldn't care about my kids' care. They would tell me things like, oh, go eat and don't worry about it. They're taken care of. Oh, go home and go to sleep. Don't worry about it. They're being taken care of. But of course I'm gonna worry. These are my children. Like, you know, so just don't be afraid to ask questions. I feel like maybe that's also not the best thing in the entire universe, but I do feel like when you're in the moment and in that situation, it's kind of hard to remember that you're the parent and you're able to ask questions. So number 4 is you have to be able to prepare for failure. There's a lot of times when there's step forwards, and there's a huge step forward, and you're so excited, and you think that, you know, you're so close to coming home, or like if you're in a hospital that you need to be transferred from because you're really far from your house. There were a couple people who were making 2-hour drives daily, and they were supposed to get transferred, and they were told they were going to be transferred, and then day of they would say, oh, another baby was born in that other hospital. We lost your room. We lost the bed for you. And for me, my second born daughter, she went 4.5 days without having any heart rate drops or apnea spells. And I went to dinner with my first daughter and my mom in the cafeteria in the hospital. And when I came back, I just saw the looks on the nurse's face, and I just knew, like, and she's like, I'm so sorry. And my daughter had a heart rate drop that was borderline and an apnea spell that was borderline. So the nurse that was taking care of them, or her, went to talk to the doctor, and the doctor came in and talked to me, and I was like in tears, and I'm like, okay, I mean, you know, it is what it is. But we were so close. Literally, if she had not had that one event that happened, we were going home the next morning, and the whole entire clock had to restart. And I was so mad because we were so close, you know? But I feel like you have to prepare yourself for failure. You have to prepare yourself for like random things happening, and just, you never know that like what can happen, basically. Like you have to, it's okay to have feelings that are negative about these things happening, of course, like I said, but you also have to kind of prepare yourself to be stuck there for what seems like an eternity, kind of, because, you know, normal babies aren't checked for all these extra things. NICU babies have to go through all these extra hoops. So, you know, for me, I was expecting originally to have my babies around, I don't know, 36, 37 weeks, no NICU time, come home with me. And they came home at 36 weeks and 3 days adjusted, and 38 weeks, or 37 weeks and 6 days adjusted. And to me, I'm just like, well, they would have been home sooner than Memorial Day, is the day that my second daughter came home. And I was just thinking, if they were born naturally, they would have been born before Memorial Day. So I had to wait longer because she was in the NICU. But, you know, that's what happens, is you kind of just get stuck there for what seems like an eternity, and you're just in an eternal loop, basically. But you got to prepare for it, you know? I never expect for things to go your way, because a lot of times they don't, which really sucks. And that's why you have to advocate for yourself, is because there's some things that are out of your control, but there's some things that are in your control. I asked specifically to be there for the hearing tests. They didn't do the hearing tests with me there. So just prepare yourself for failure. Sorry, I'm talking in circles. And the last thing I want to say, not so much advice, but just kind of like words of wisdom, I guess, for someone who had already gone through it. It will be over. It will end. You will bring that baby home, and everything will be in the past. It's like, it's eventually it will be like it never happened. And it's so hard to think of that as a reality in the moment, because it just feels like it's never gonna end, you know? Like, you feel like you're just stuck in this eternal cycle of like, this is my life now, and I'm never gonna leave the hospital, and I'm never gonna have a life again, and like, it's just not like that, you know? It does end eventually. I felt like I was there for eternity, and I mean, my kids are turning a year and 8 months old today. A year and 7 months almost ago, they came home. Or at the end of the month, it'll be a year and 7 months that they came home. They were both home. And it's just such a thing of the past, and every single day goes by, it's farther and farther in the past. My kids have been so healthy and so happy, and they've thrived so much. They've hit all of their milestones on time, mostly with their actual age, not even adjusted. They're so smart, and they're so amazing. They're very tiny, but that's the only sign, really, is their physical characteristics of the fact that they're premature. It's like nobody would ever even know. I mean, I don't even get questions anymore about, I think people thinking they're only a year old or anything. People aren't even shocked about them being a year and a half anymore. It really does, it's over, you know? It ends. And I just really hope to be able to help other people. I think a lot of people aren't really gonna, you know, a lot of people don't end up in the NICU, and that's great, and that's the way it should be. But for people who do end up there, it can feel really lonely and really isolating to feel like I was the only person who had a baby in the NICU in my mom group, and I was the only one with preemies. The next most premature baby was like, you know, 34 weeks, or 30, no, yeah, for a long time. 36 weeks, not 34 weeks, for a long time. And it feels really isolating when you feel like you're the only person who has, you know, a baby who was in that situation. And I was there for so long. But everything you'll move forward from it. And I just hope to help other people and make them not feel so alone anymore. So thank you for watching. I know this isn't for everybody. It's a very specific video but I wanted to make it anyway because I feel really strongly about this. All right, thank you.